Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Planet X News. This is Scott from the Nibiru channel, and I am joined here this evening by our physicist. And good evening, Doctor. How are you?
Good evening, Scott. I'm fine, thank you. And you?
What is happening here? I am joined here this evening by Hold on one second. And good evening, Doctor. How are you?
Good evening, Scott.
Oh,
I'm fine.
Sorry about that, everybody. I actually had the video playing in the background for the live chat. Okay, now that we've taken care of that quick audio problem, Doctor, you wrote a report today.
Yes.
That is just absolutely eye-opening. I mean, I could just use those words for sure.
Yes.
Definitely eye-opening. And over the course of this morning, I did a few reports on what's been happening around the world.
Yes.
And, you know, we've been seeing so many weather-related issues, floods, landslides, mudslides, volcanic activity, earthquake activity. And, you know, something that we haven't touched on, but, you know, and this actually makes me feel very bad, is all of these animal die-offs and these fish die-offs. And this has been going on for some time. And, you know, I mean, we could actually take a religious standpoint about this type of topic, you know, going into the Bible and scriptures. And, you know, after doing a few of these videos today and looking at the devastation in China and now Japan and seeing what just happened in Spain. And, you know, a few weeks ago, the same thing was happening in Central America and some of the South American countries. Also in some of the South Pacific countries. And like I've said before, ladies and gentlemen, you know, around the world, people are losing their lives with what is happening. You will have people out there that will simply say, this is just a fact of nature. You know, this is just natural, giving you this pretty cold-hearted response. But in all actuality, I've said this before, I'll say it again. In your lifetime, whether you're 20 years old, 50 years old, or 70 years old, when have you ever in your lifetime seen anything like what is happening around this world? When have you seen skies that are just absolutely breathtaking with beautiful colors, I might add? I did a short video this morning when I went for, you know, just a little morning walk. And once again, you know, at 6 a.m. this morning, just absolutely breathtaking pink, magenta skies for about 45 minutes from, you know, 6 a.m. to 6:45 a.m. Just amazing.
Yeah.
You know, now, Doctor, I know going back to the very beginning, these strange skies, these colors were something that actually attracted you to what was happening. So for a lot of the viewers that, you know, are maybe new to our channel, why don't you fill them in on some of the observations that brought your attention to what was happening?
Yes. Well, Scott, I enjoyed having walks at sunset, and I used to look at the sky, and I noticed that as the sun was setting in the west, that the sky would be pink or red there, and I noticed it was also red in the east, which was very strange. In addition, the clouds above at sunset above my head were red, and I found that extremely strange. I didn't think that was normal at all, and I thought the only way that was possible was if these clouds were being illuminated by a red light source. In other words, an additional star. So that's how I started thinking there's something very strange happening in the solar system, because we're only supposed to have one star, and that is the sun. And this looked like there was more than one. So that's how it all started.
Yeah, I mean, I've been looking at these strange skies myself now for, quite some time. And I know last year was, I saw some pretty odd things in the sky as far as, coloration and things of that nature. But this year,
yes,
I'll tell you, starting around November and December, and then definitely in January and February, I mean, I documented it every single morning, looking at these skies. And, I like I said before, I've been all over. I've seen some breathtaking sunsets. When I lived in South Florida, my apartment was exactly due east. I watched the sunrise every single morning with my morning coffee. And I've never seen anything like what I am seeing now. And I know people are seeing this all around the world because, well, I'm getting the photographs. I'm getting the photographs on a daily basis. The Planet X News email address is just absolutely overwhelmed with these emails and these sunrises and these sunsets and these magenta colored skies.
Yes.
But what we're really going to talk about today, ladies and gentlemen, is the doctor went ahead and she spent quite a long period of time today writing this report. And, the heading of the report is not meant to scare you, even though, the word apocalyptic is in the title.
Yes.
But ladies and gentlemen, what you have to understand is, what is happening is apocalyptic. When you walk outside and you're living in Spain in the summer, and all of a sudden you have a massive hailstorm that fills the city streets and turns it into what looks like downtown Moscow in the dead of the winter. What has happened in China is just absolutely total devastation in flooding and rain. And then, out of nowhere, the same thing just happens in Japan. Weeks ago, the same thing was happening in Guatemala, Nicaragua, El Salvador, Peru, Chile, Argentina, Colombia, Bolivia, Mexico in the southern portion of their country.
Yes.
Indonesia, Taiwan. I mean, I saw a video 2 weeks ago from Taipei. I did a video of it. All of the streets, the water was so deep. A taxi cab driver was trying to get out of his vehicle as it was floating down the main street in Taipei. And he had to jump out of the vehicle, and the water was up to his neck. This is just coming on so suddenly. And I've mentioned this before, and I'm going to say it again. We are only in the beginning of these apocalyptic times. Whether you want to believe it or not, there may be others out there that will say, hey, you're crazy. You're a fearmonger. You're full of BS. Okay, whatever you say. You tell that to the families that have just lost family members in these apocalyptic times. You go to the funerals and you see the tears on the families' faces as they bury their loved ones. And on top of that, there are still people missing in these events that may never be found. And as people stand around as naysayers and say that none of this is happening, well, don't come crying to us when you are burying a family member who happens to be a victim of one of these apocalyptic events. And it's happening, ladies and gentlemen, worldwide. Worldwide. And we all know that this was not going to be some very simple event where this rogue planet comes whipping through the solar system. As the theories of Nibiru have been stated, this is going to be an event that may take some time, and it is taking time. And we are in the beginning stages of it. You know, me and the doctor were talking today, once again, having an in-depth conversation about the wobbling or the tilting of our planet. You know, nobody wants to admit that. Am I correct, doctor? Nobody wants to admit that this is happening.
No, they don't, of course. The powers that be don't want people to know what is really going on. But it's obvious that the sun is setting in different positions, and that can only be caused by this wobble.
Yes, and you know, the story, the video that Mr. MBB333 did the other day, where one of his subscribers, who is a farmer and uses solar power, farm, and I mentioned this yesterday. He's been using solar power at his farm for many years. Now, all of a sudden, you know, he's having to turn his solar panels in another direction to capture the sun. But yet, you know, in all of the time that he's had the solar panels, he's never had this problem until recently. And, you know, he happens to be a subscriber of that channel. That channel, Mr. MBB333, has, you know, he has documented and talked about this before. And I just found that video to be so profound. And I found that video to be actual evidence of what is occurring. Just a lot of weird things happening. You know, we talk about our jet stream and what's been occurring there. We saw a very, I'd say like a very chaotic and weird wintertime in the northern hemisphere. And in the southern hemisphere, it was just as chaotic. You know, the folks down in Australia, wow, they had one hell of a summertime down there. And now things are reversed. And here in the northern hemisphere, the people out in the southwestern part of the United States, I mean, they're just baking out there. Last week, what was it? Temperatures in the 120s. There was the small town of Chihuahua, Mexico. I think they topped out at like 126 degrees. You know, very, very strange. I saw one report 2 days ago where it was pouring down rain in the Sahara Desert. And the camels that were in the video looked like, you know, I mean, I know they're animals, but they were looking around like, what in the hell is this? What is this stuff falling? You know, and they were shaking their heads and they looked very, you know, kind of startled by what was happening. And we're just seeing some really, really weird things. But ladies and gentlemen, this is all to be expected. And something that I am going to say, you ain't seen nothing yet. You have not seen anything yet. And it's very sad to say that there will probably be, you know, more people that, you know, accidentally lose their lives as victims of these tragic events. It is sad. I even hate to see the fish die. You know, I'm just an avid animal lover, and all of these fish kills that have been documented. There is a website. Pastor Paul Begley was doing a story on it a few months ago. He was running down this list for 2016 and then going into 2017. I think this is maybe back in March, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
And the list for 2017, in the first 3 months of this year, the animal die-offs and the fish kills were insane. Just absolutely insane.
Yeah.
And then just recently, I forget what town in Texas, this whole entire river or tributary or canal or I forget what it was. I'm not sure, but absolutely devastated. 1 million fish just dead. Floated to the surface. They're all dead. You know, I mean, we can look back into the Bible and we could start to pick these things out. And, you know, the doctor has prepared a pretty profound report.
Yes.
It's pretty interesting. So, you know, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and pull this report up and share my screen. And I'm going to hand this right over to the doctor. And, you know, Doc, you just...
Okay, thank you, Scott.
You just go ahead and take over. And I'm going to sit back here and watch this again. I'm going to pull this up real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay,
and
so...
okay, there you go. The doctor has named this Planet X and the Apocalyptic, the Apocalyptic Times Ahead.
Yes. Thank you, Scott.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually looked at Revelation 16, and what it says there will happen during the end times. And I'm looking at everything then that it states in terms of what we know is happening in the solar system. And that is that we have several brown dwarf stars, and they can be thought of as Planet X. A lot of people refer to these objects as Planet X. And the name is, of course, appropriate because when they come into the solar system, they first of all dark, just like planets are. And they are about the same size as Jupiter, a little smaller, maybe some of them a little larger, but not far from the size of Jupiter. So they, of course, will look like planets. So referring to them as Planet X is just fine. But they are not actually planets. They are actually old stars, and most of them are able to regenerate and start operating like real stars once they have absorbed some energy from the sun. So because of that, and because of the fact that they have such high magnetic fields, they are able to drain the sun and affect it. They are also able to affect the Earth's poles, and that's what leads to the wobble in the Earth's rotational axis. And then that will lead to the sun rising and setting in different positions, and it will lead to changing weather patterns. All of this we have been observing and is happening on Earth right now. And it also leads to induction of currents in the ionosphere and in the Earth's outer core. And that leads to the magma inside the Earth warming up, currents in the core, and that leads to earthquakes and volcanic activity. And we know that the number of earthquakes has been exponentially increasing since the 1970s, and the severity has been increasing as well. But all this we see is increasing and getting worse slowly. But the book of Revelation tells us what can actually happen, what is supposed to happen at the end. So this is what I have done. There were several points. So if we scroll down a little further, we can look at the first one that is mentioned in Revelation 16, and that is that people will have ugly festering sores. Now, festering sores are likely to be caused by radiation. So ionizing radiation produces what is called radiation dermatitis. And if the condition worsens, it can get to the point where people may have festering sores. So I think that may be what is happening here. This is really a bad situation for people who get this problem. And of course, it can be caused by what we have in the solar system, which are these old regenerated stars. They emit radiation just like other stars do, and they also emit ionized particles in terms of a stellar wind. And both of these will impact the magnetosphere. In fact, we see that happening already. Our magnetosphere is obviously under severe pressure from the additional stellar winds coming from these objects. And we've seen also that our magnetosphere, our bow shock, has collapsed. And when that happens, radiation goes right into the Earth. And that could cause radiation to get right to the Earth's surface and for radiation sickness to then result. So we see that the reason why this possibly happens at the end is the objects that we already have in the solar system. Right, so that's the first point. The second point is every living thing in the sea dies. And as you mentioned already in your introduction, there have been many animal die-offs. And we have seen many photographs of fish floating on the surface of lakes and rivers and at the seashore. And what I think could cause that would be the magnetic influence from these objects, which some people call Planet X. And what they do is they cause the oceans to warm up from the bottom. And that is due to volcanic activity at the bottom of the ocean. So that releases hot magma and poisonous gases into the ocean. And if the fish are exposed to these gases, they will, of course, die. But what it talks about in Revelation 16 is every living thing in the sea dying. So that would be an extreme worsening of the situation that we have right now. It's already happening, but when it gets to an extreme level, then we may see every living thing in the sea died, and that would include plant life as well. And of course, it's not just volcanic activity, the radiation coming from these objects through the atmosphere, getting in through the magnetosphere, the ionized particles coming in, they will also affect the sea life and cause extreme problems and will probably lead to every living thing in the sea dying. So if we scroll down a little bit more, I have some pictures. I think there's yes, there we see large numbers of dead fish float in a lake in China on May 8th, 2016. And this is what's happening. This happened over a year ago, and it continues to happen around the world. So we have the precursor to every living thing dying in the ocean already happening. And the third point mentioned is rivers and springs become like blood. And here we see a photograph from China. This is from July 24th, 2014. As you can see, the water looks red like blood. And this is usually, well, people attribute this to chemicals being dumped, pollution, and illegal dumping of colorant. However, for all the rivers on Earth to turn to blood, like it says in Revelation 16 that it will happen. We'd have to have much more than just pollution that happens on Earth. We'd have to probably have pollution that comes from outer space. And what would cause that? Well, these objects we have in the solar system are surrounded by gas and debris. And a lot of this debris would be metals, say iron. And when iron comes into the atmosphere, it combines with oxygen and becomes rust or iron oxide, which is red. And if that ends up in the rivers, of course, it will lead to the water turning red or turning to what looks like blood. Right, so if you scroll down a little bit more.
You know, I think there was a report coming out of Russia. I don't know if it was this past. I don't know if it was this past winter.
Yes.
They had a river in Russia that just turned red for no reason. They did publicize it. However, you know, after it was publicized, there was no more information that was brought up about it.
Yes, I think they do that because they don't actually want to show people what's actually happening. Because what I think may actually be happening, even though it's attributed to chemical pollution, is that the material that's causing these rivers to turn red may actually already be coming from space, from the debris field that surrounds some of these objects. And because otherwise they would give us proper reasons as to why this is happening. But as you mentioned, they don't usually. They just tell you it's happening, and then you never hear anything else about it. Right, so then the fourth point mentioned in Revelation 16 is darkness. And darkness is caused by the sun not shining, or it can be caused by the sun being eclipsed by a very large object. Now, we do know that the sun, and this is what I have observed since I've been researching this, and that the STO eclipse season is not actually an eclipse. The sun is actually going dark. And that has to be caused by one or more objects that are able to drain it of energy, that approach it and pass close to its surface and are able to drain it to the point that it stops emitting light. And so this is what's happening. I've placed here a photograph that shows the sun going dark. This is from February 14th, 2017. So this is the last eclipse cycle, but it's not an eclipse. Of course, the sun was going dark. It was getting progressively dark, and that's what we can see here. And of course, if the sun goes dark, then we wouldn't get light from the sun. The reason why we don't actually see it happening now is because there are sun simulators. And the sun simulators illuminate the Earth so that it's not noticeable that the sun is going dark. So for the Earth to actually experience the fact that the sun is going dark, the sun simulators have to malfunction. And this could be caused by electromagnetic discharges. And we see that happening already because the power grids sometimes have problems. Sometimes we get fires in substations and so on. So if we scroll down a little bit more, you see Revelation 16 seems to imply in reference to the darkness that not even artificial light is working. And that to me implies that there have been electromagnetic discharges that overwhelm and destroy the circuitry in the power grids. And then that would cause things like induced currents and surges in power lines and transformer fires until you get complete power grid failure. So possibly all this will be happening at the same time. The sun going dark and no power grid, no electricity. So there are no artificial light sources on Earth.
You know, Doctor, going into this power grid failure and thinking back just a short time ago, the Operation Gotham Shield event that was held in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, the surrounding areas. You know, these events that that they're starting to hold, you know, they do cause a lot of suspicion. Because I was able to speak with an individual when I was on a radio show, well, just about maybe 2 or 3 months ago. This man lives in New York City, and he works in the subway. He's one of their electrical engineers. And he was telling me that whenever New York City had that power outage, something that they did not report was over 100,000 people stuck underground in the subway system.
Oh my.
And he actually came on to the radio show because we were accepting call-ins and we were discussing this. And he was telling me how outdated the electrical systems are in, you know, a lot of the parts of the New York subway. And, you know, he mentioned to me, he said, listen, Scott, if something tragic happens, worse than what happened with the power outage, and for some unknown reason, on top of that, we have some severe flooding. He said, you do understand that, you know, these tunnels, these underground subways, some of them are pretty deep. These people will be trapped.
Yes.
In the subways with water rising very rapidly because, you know, New York City, Manhattan, it's not very far above sea level, you know, so if something would occur like that, I mean, you're looking at probably instantaneously 100 to 150,000 people, you know, losing their lives immediately. You know, so I think that we are seeing the signs. At least I know the United States government, you know, pulling off all of these UX-16, Jade Helm, you know, military movements all around the United States. I mean, we see the videos on YouTube, hundreds and hundreds of tanks, Humvees, military generators, all of this equipment moving across the United States by train. We've seen the videos. We've all seen the videos pertaining to what they're doing with these Walmarts that are just absolutely closing down. I think, I don't know if it was at one point somewhere in early 2016, I think Walmart just up and closed. I don't know. I think if it was either 169 or 269 stores. Well, I mean, Walmart is the old grocery stores that we all grew up with. I mean, they were the old grocery store killers. You know, I mean, they came in and they just basically undercut everybody. And, you know, naturally these places have to close down. So I find it very, very suspicious that now all of a sudden, all of these Walmarts that people depend on, they all close down. And, you know, we've seen these Walmarts literally turned into fortresses with large, high fences with barbed wire around the top, and U.S. military soldiers occupying the space. What in the hell is going on there? You know, and that all erupts into the whole FEMA camp scenario. So to me, putting all of these things together, that just goes to show me that they are preparing. They are preparing for something. And yes, they know a hell of a lot more than we do. And I have said this before also, that if you follow what the government telegraphs, you'll start seeing things that are going to raise your eyebrows. I mean, they had a drill in Russia. I forget how many millions of people took part in this drill going into these underground bunkers. Over in China, they built cities with massive apartment buildings, complete neighborhoods, and they're all uninhabited.
Sure.
They're empty. But why? I'll tell you why. Is because they already know what areas of their country will be inundated. And that's why they just built these ghost cities that no one has moved into yet. And here's something else. There are a lot of countries on this planet that have no idea what is happening. And I mean the governments. A lot of the South American governments are not involved in any of this. I don't think the Mexican government is involved in any of this, because they know already that South America, Mexico, collateral damage. They're going to be wiped out. There's going to be parts of Europe that will be completely wiped out and flooded. You know, if you do a simple flood simulator, there's one online that you can use, raising the sea levels. You can quickly see how fast parts of Europe disappear.
Yeah.
Pretty incredible.
Yes. It's very sad, Scott, that it has come to this, but I think it's better if people know the truth of what could actually happen.
Well, I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. You know, and again, folks, you know, we take a lot of abuse for bringing this information to all of you. And hey, you know, it just comes with the territory. I'm pretty thick-skinned. The doctor's skin's getting pretty thick also, don't you think, Doctor?
Yes, God.
It is. Just her coming to the United States, you know, she's been here for less than a week, and they're already trying to beat on her left and right. But you know, I just you know, just while we began this live stream,
yes,
I got a message from a very, very good friend of mine over in Europe, an email, and they're listening to Dazza the cameraman's live stream right now with his cronies. And Doctor, they're stating in the live stream over there that they're extending an olive branch to you because they think that I am holding you hostage. And I have brainwashed you, and I am forcing you to write these articles, and basically I have you chained up and feeding you raw meat. So, I mean, if you can please clarify for everybody that you're not being held hostage.
No, I'm not being held hostage. Not at all. I'm doing this of my own free will. I believe this is the right thing to do, and Scott is simply helping me, and I'm very thankful for that.
Thank you. Well, you know, now that we got that out of the way, would you ever accept this olive branch from Dazza the cameraman? Mr.
No, I don't. No, I really would rather not. Let's put it that way. No, I don't want to.
I might just take that olive branch, and give him a little whipping, a couple of welts across his backside. But anyways, let's move on into this point number 5, because this starts dealing with our sun.
That's right. So point number 5 is the sun becomes extremely hot and scorches people. So this is what it says in Revelation 16 will happen. And of course, this is the opposite of an ice age. This is the sun getting hot. And we see right now that in most parts of the world, the weather in winter is milder. There are a few spots where it's colder, but in most areas it's getting hotter. And the ice is melting at the North Pole. And so we know that this is happening, that it's getting hotter. Also, people have been reporting that when they go out and they get just a mere moments of sun exposure, that they have a burning sensation in their skin. And that is due to the depletion of the ozone layer, which then allows UVC, which is the high energy ultraviolet radiation, to reach the surface of the Earth. And that damages the skin. It causes DNA damage to cells in the skin. And this is why our body reacts with this burning sensation. Now, why is the ozone layer depleted? I have written an article about this before. And part of it is geoengineering. The other part is just simple, very small particles getting into the upper atmosphere. And these particles would come from volcanic eruptions. They could even come from outer space because of the small particles of dust from the debris field around the brown dwarf stars coming in. So we could have that. Geoengineering has, of course, been damaging our ozone layer around the world as well. And they are doing that, of course, to hide the fact that these objects are here from the population on Earth. So either way, our ozone layer is being depleted. First of all, because we have these objects in the solar system. And then, as I said before, the temperatures around the world have been going up. For example, in May of 2016, a city in India experienced a temperature of 124 degrees. And this is extremely high temperature. Now, the powers that be, or the news items that appear on what is happening with the weather in India usually report a time when many years ago they also had very high temperature, not quite as high, but nearly as high. But what is not mentioned is the fact that this was extremely uncommon 30 years ago. And now it's happening yearly. Almost every year, the temperature in India soars to 124 degrees. In fact, in May of 2015, there was such a heat wave in India, in a city in India, that it led to over 1,500 fatalities. People were just dying from the heat because it was so extreme. And this may have happened once every 50 years. A long time ago. Now it's happening. It's almost common that this happens every summer in India. And it's not just happening in India, it's happening in cities around the world, in Saudi Arabia. It's even happening in the United States. I think temperatures are soaring to very high levels in different places. So this is becoming more and more common, and it shows you that the sun, and it's not just the sun, because these brown dwarf stars emit radiation as well, and they are warming up the planet from the upper atmosphere downwards and from the bottom of the ocean upwards. So this is what's happening. The temperatures are soaring, and we see therefore the beginning of what is reported in Revelation 16 will eventually happen.
You know, something I wanted to mention, you know, you mentioned these folks, these people in India,
yes,
with the fatalities dealing with these rising temperatures.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this year, I mean, what, just a month ago, they were all being struck and killed by lightning.
Mm.
I mean, listen, come on. 9 people in one day in one country being struck by lightning. And then, a few days later, more people struck by lightning, some of them killed, some of them injured. I mean, what the hell's going on in India? They had record cold temperatures in the northern part of the country, and then soaring temperatures going through the roof. Once again, moving into the summertime months. But this lightning strike situation that occurred a little more than a month ago, I think it was. I mean, every day that, I'd be looking at articles and there would be more people struck by lightning in India. I mean, amazing, just really amazing things that are happening, awful things. But again, when have you ever seen or heard of so many people getting struck by lightning, all at one time in one country? I mean, they say in the United States that the state of Florida, more people get struck by lightning in the state of Florida. Well, look, I lived in the state of Florida for 22 years. And yeah, you have some people get struck by lightning. Some make it, some don't. But 9 people in one day? Amazing.
That's amazing, Scott. And of course, this is another sign of what is happening in the solar system and how it's affecting the Earth. Because of the fact that we have these brown dwarf stars, and they are highly magnetic, and they emit large amounts of ionized particles like all stars do. And of course, our atmosphere is being impacted by these ionized particles, and that will lead to electrical discharges in the ionosphere and lower down in the atmosphere, and that will cause increased lightning events. That is what is actually supposed to happen because of these objects being close to the Earth. So I'm not surprised that that is happening, and that will probably increase. So this is why also we have such severe weather, because weather is electrical in nature. And when the electrical currents in the atmosphere increase, then the weather patterns and the cloud formation and the winds and everything surrounding that, tornadoes, the severe weather, becomes more and more severe. So I'm not surprised that that is happening. And I think we can expect it to get worse.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I think that as we move further into the summer in the northern hemisphere, things are going to get, well, they're going to get pretty bad. And I think as we move into the fall, moving into September and the fall solstice, I think things are going to get, well, let's just say very trying.
Yes.
For people around the world. And I believe a lot more people are going to start waking up and start asking questions. And the fact of the matter is, it's going to be at a point in time where possibly it's too late to answer or ask those questions, because there's not going to be anybody to give you the answers. You should have been waking up, now, a year ago. But it's very hard to do this because, the odds are against you trying to do what we're doing, and that's make people aware of what is happening. And, all of the misinformation and the disinformation that is passed around by officials, meaning our governments. They talk about this global warming crap, that man-induced global warming. Yes. Well, I would say maybe a little tiny portion of it. But, these last 2 years on this planet, I'm not buying the global warming and man was at fault. There is entirely way too much evidence that this has everything to do what is occurring in our solar system, what is affecting our sun, and our sun is reacting.
Yes.
And what happens on our sun affects the Earth.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with you, Scott, that I don't think this is due to global warming at all, because if you increase the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, what happens is plant life actually thrives with increased carbon dioxide. So the small increases that human beings have put into the atmosphere due to fossil fuel usage should actually just lead to more plant life. And we don't see that happening at all. In fact, plants are in many parts of the world drying up and dying. And so I don't think this is global warming. I think our planet is being damaged by the effects of these objects on the sun and by directly affecting the Earth through the radiation emission and through the stellar winds and through their very high magnetic fields, which causes the Earth wobble, and it causes changes in weather patterns. And this is the case with rivers drying up. There have been many rivers drying up, mainly due to drought conditions, where it just stops raining in a certain part of the world. It just doesn't rain for years.
Yeah.
And the drought gets, that's right. So the drought gets so severe that rivers dry up. The fish in those rivers die, of course. And if we scroll down a little bit, we see two rivers where this has happened. One is in,
Lord.
Yes, this is, the first one is in California, because California had a severe drought for quite a few years. So that's the one on the left. That's the Kern River in California. And then the other one is quite a wide river, as you can see, in Mongolia. And you can see the bridge there going across the river, but there's no water at all in this river. It's completely dried. And this is due to extreme drought.
And there's snow on the ground.
Yeah, it looks like it. I know, it's amazing.
Oh my.
Yeah.
That is a wide river. I mean, for that
Yes.
all to be dried up, that is a wide river in Mongolia.
Yes, it is. It's amazing. And then we get the opposite happening in other parts of the world. So it doesn't rain in certain areas, and then it rains too much in other areas, and that leads to flooding. And what we see here is flooding in Taiwan. This is from June 2nd, 2017. As you can see, that's a car floating in the water because the flood is so severe.
This is the story that I did, and I just mentioned it, that the taxi cab driver, there was video to this, and the poor taxi cab driver did not know what to do. He did not want to leave his taxi. I saw the cell phone video to this. The poor guy, he finally climbed out of the window, and he was up to his neck.
My goodness.
In water, and the water was moving very, very rapidly.
Yeah.
The city of Taipei took a beating. A lot of these small countries, island countries in the South Pacific, Indonesia, I mean, they're really taking a beating. And, you know, if it wasn't for websites like The Watchers and the Sign of the Times, we wouldn't know about this. Because, again, mainstream media, they're too busy with this whole Donald Trump and, you know, the government crap. But like I mentioned yesterday, you know, there is devastation all around this world. Every freaking corner. I think that is news. That's news.
Yes.
It's very, very sad, ladies and gentlemen, that we have come to these types of times when, you know, all of this crap in politics takes precedence over worldwide devastation and loss of life. It's sickening.
It is.
And, you know, like I've said before, hey, when that day of reckoning comes and these people, this new world order, these elite, these debunkers, all of these trolls, all of these naysayers that have joined these factions, they're going to stand in front of their creator. And man, I really want to be there. I really want to be there. If God can ever do me one favor, let me be there when they stand in front of him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I know I got somewhere to put my foot. I'm not gonna go any further than that.
Yes.
But
okay.
yeah.
All right. So so that's Taiwan, and then below that I have another picture. This one is from South Florida, and this is from June 8th. And as you can see, the same thing due to severe rainfall. We see severe flooding happening there as well.
Yeah, I know exactly where this area is. I also did a quick video on this.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I mean, Florida does have a drainage issue. They always will. They always have.
Mm-hmm.
But this widespread flooding was, this was pretty eye-opening, because usually this water subsides in a few hours.
Yes.
But this actually stuck around. They got blasted with so much rain so quickly. And this is the other problem. These massive amounts of rain in short periods of time. This just happened between yesterday and today in Japan. You know, I was going to do a story about it, but we got so involved in the creation of this article. And you know what happened in Japan? I think they got like 14, 15 inches of rain in 4 hours.
My goodness.
I mean, like you know, what are these clouds like holding, you know, massive buckets of water? They just dump it on a country and roll out.
That's right.
You know, and what happened in China? Listen, folks, whew, man, you know, I saw more and more pictures coming in today of the devastation in that portion of China. It is bad.
Mm-hmm.
So bad. What made me feel bad and sad was in some of those videos, those little tiny children, 4, 5, 6 years old, packing sandbags. I mean, we're in the beginnings of some very sad times.
Indeed.
And that actually put a lump in my throat to see that.
Mm.
You know, I mean, it's different when it's an adult, but you know, these little children, I mean, in the portion of the video that I showed, I mean, the kids were, you know, 5, 6 years old, maybe younger than that.
Mm-hmm.
These people are struggling for their lives. And for the most of us that live in, you know, kind of a modern country, modern city, you know, where we have different things than these other folks. I mean, they're being inundated. It's very sad. It just, it's very sad.
It is, Scott. I agree. It's very sad when little children are made to work in that way, just to be able to protect their houses. They're just tiny children. I'm sure they don't even understand. It must be adults that are telling them what to do.
Yeah.
So it is sad. Indeed.
Yeah. I don't know if you could ever get American kids to do that. You know, they're too busy with their cell phones and their video games. They'd be like, what? You want me to go pack a sandbag? No way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Indeed. Right. So that's okay. Then this one is, I found it really interesting, very scary. And point number 7 is a great worldwide earthquake. And this leads to cities around the world collapsing, islands disappearing, mountains disappearing. This is a severe worldwide earthquake. And well, we know we've had many earthquakes happening. It keeps increasing, the number of earthquakes, and that has been exponentially increasing since the 1970s, as we can see from figure 9 here. This is a diagram from 2007. So it's 10 years ago, but already then it could be seen that the number of earthquakes was increasing exponentially. And I've looked into it. They've increased at a rate which is greater than exponential, actually, in more recent years. And the magnitude of these earthquakes seems to be increasing as well. And what causes earthquakes, as I mentioned before, is the strong magnetic fields that these objects have, and the ionized particles impacting the magnetosphere induce currents in the outer core of the Earth, increases the temperature in the magma, and that puts pressure on the crust and induces earthquake activity. So the more of these objects we have in the inner solar system, and since we seem to have increasing numbers of them, and since more and more of them seem to be regenerating and producing stellar winds, this has caused more and more severe earthquake activity. But what the book of Revelation is talking about is something that is unimaginable, and that is an earthquake that shakes the whole planet at the same time. And what could cause that? I think it may actually be that one of these objects comes very close to the Earth. It won't impact the Earth. I don't think the Earth will ever be destroyed, but it can pull on the Earth's magnetic poles and grab them in such a way that it causes a severe worldwide earthquake. And it shakes the whole planet, just like it's described in the book of Revelation. And that would then lead to mountains collapsing. They could turn into oceans, or parts of the ocean flooding, the continents, new continents appearing. It's a severe shaking that we are talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I just want to mention something, you know, real quick, Doctor.
Mm-hmm.
You know, all of the information that the doctor is bringing forth, you know, some people can sit and say that, oh, you know, you're just fear mongering, blah, blah, blah. But in all actuality, folks, if you really go out and you really pay attention to some of this information, you'll find the USGS, the European Seismology offices, National Geographic. If any of you here in the United States are familiar with the Discovery Channel, the History Channel, news channels, documentaries, all of these people
Mm-hmm.
are putting together video information pertaining to all of this. So, you know, if National Geographic does a pretty eye-opening video on Yellowstone, which I watched one this morning, is it fear-mongering? No. It's bringing forth the information for all of us to learn from, for all of us to see. It's information. It's not fear-mongering.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, listening to what you're saying, Doctor,
yes,
is definitely eye-opening. So my question is, what is the difference when you bring in this information and when a news source or a documentary film company brings this information to us, or the USGS comes out with a statement talking about a magnitude 7.9 earthquake imminent to hit Southern California, and they publicize it through the media. What's the difference between you talking about it and them talking about it?
Well, there shouldn't be any difference at all, Scott.
Exactly.
We are just trying to inform people about what could happen. And we're putting together what the evidence of what is happening in the solar system with what the Bible says, in the book of Revelation, will happen at the end. So when it gets as severe as it can get, so I don't see anything wrong with what we are doing or fear mongering. I think it's telling people the truth about what they can expect to happen and explaining what is actually leading up to it. We now have explanations. The book of Revelation is talking about what will happen. We now know what is happening and what is leading up to that point.
Exactly. And, and a lot of the data that we have to go by, a lot of this is coming from these agencies. We try to collect as much as possible. And, sometimes we get criticized because we criticize NASA, and yet we use NASA's tools, meaning, the SDO, the stereo, SETI. We use these images. Well, look, folks, we don't have anything else. Me and the doctor, we don't have enough money to put a satellite into space and view the sun. So, we literally are at their mercy, and we do have to use whatever we can to get this information and try to decipher it. No, we're not hypocrites that we talk crap on NASA, because NASA does it to themselves. When you're removing information, you're removing dates and timestamps, and you're hiding things. And there are people like myself and the doctor and, guys like BP Earthwatch and, Mike from around the world and, Mr. MB333. And we find this missing data, and we see NASA hiding these things and removing data and replacing it. Well, what do you think we're going to say? We're going to call them out. Hey, where's the data? And they don't answer us. They don't care, and I'm starting to find out slowly but surely that, I didn't want to believe this before, but I am really starting to believe it, that NASA definitely pays attention to everything that we do here on YouTube. Not just us, a lot of other people.
Yes.
And there are things coming out now that is literally showing that they have their own trolling operation.
Yes.
I mean, this really freaked me out. And I saw some information today, and another gentleman published it on a website. I have the link. I'm going to be working on it first thing tomorrow morning. And I'll tell you what they will not go through to shut you up and discredit you. It is amazing. But yet, we're seeing all of these things. We're experiencing all of these things. And they're simply out there telling you, no, you're all wrong. Totally wrong. Totally, totally, totally wrong.
Yes. Yes, that's right, Scott. In fact, I was a bit disappointed again this morning because HelioViewer has not been updated. I looked at it this morning. I wanted to look at some SDO images, and the latest date was June 28th that I could get.
Again, that date.
Yeah, June 28th, and nothing else after that. So obviously they are hiding something again.
Yeah, that's very suspicious. You know, I hate when they do that, because that just, that actually gets me worried that that's too far.
Yes, it is.
I mean, it's one thing to be 2 or 3 days behind in the data.
Yes.
These craft, these satellites and probes, they're not that far away for the data transmission. Okay.
No, not at all.
I think that we're in the age of technology where they're getting live feed information.
Oh, yes.
If they can talk to people on the fake International Space Station with astronauts in a studio hanging from wires and their hair sprayed up in the air to make it look like they're upside down and there's no gravity. Yeah, I think they got live feeds to all of the information. And whenever they do something like this and they withhold this data from June 28th till now, that's only telling me one thing. They're up to something.
Oh, yes.
And whenever we do get the data, well, there ain't going to be nothing on it.
Yes, it's sad, but that's what's happened.
That's true.
Yes. Okay, so figure 10, we see the aftermath of a 6.2 magnitude earthquake in central Italy. This is from August 2016, and this is the kind of destruction that we see. So what the book of Revelation is talking about is whole cities turning to rubble, just disappearing. And if it's unimaginable, actually, that that sort of thing is going to happen eventually.
Yeah, that was pretty devastating. I remember this very well back in August.
Yes.
Yeah, that was terrible, because there were a few very, very old churches that were there for a long, long time, over a century, that were destroyed. And just once again, people being displaced, and a lot of sadness and despair.
Yes, it's very sad. Now, the other thing I want to mention is that it's not mentioned in Revelation 16, but in other parts of the Bible, it talks about time being shortened. And in fact, it talks about a third of the night and a third of the day will not shine. And that to me sounds like a shortening of our 24-hour day by 1/3. So it would be a 16-hour day instead. Now, what would cause that? Well, we know that the 8.9 magnitude earthquake that occurred on March 11, 2011 in Japan, it caused that tsunami, as you know. It caused the Earth's rotational speed to be to increase, and that led to a slightly shortened day, only by 1.8 milliseconds, but the day was shortened. So we can see that earthquakes can lead to a shortening of the day. So a worldwide earthquake, this was one earthquake at a single point on the planet. When every point on the planet shakes with this worldwide earthquake, then it is possible that the day will be shortened by 1/3. So this may be what we are looking at is the cause of the shortening of the day.
And now we're looking at 100-pound hailstones.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't want to get hit by one of those.
No, 100-pound hailstones is 0.8. And as we know, if a hailstone like this hits a person, it will kill the person. It will also cause untold destruction to buildings and vehicles. Now, we have seen some large hailstones already. And as you see, this person here holding some very large hailstones. These are about 5 times larger than normal hailstones. And this is from May of 2010 in Oklahoma City. These hailstones actually look like they are smaller hailstones that have compacted together. And this, of course, can happen because the weather is becoming severe, the updrafts, and it's updrafts in the clouds that causes these hailstones to form, because droplets of water are pushed upwards, they freeze, they come back down, another layer of water forms around them, they are pushed up again, and so on, and that increases their size. They can also be compacted together into larger hailstones. However, 100-pound hailstones is difficult to imagine actually happening. So I was thinking that perhaps the Bible is not actually talking about icy objects, but perhaps rocky objects that come from outer space. In other words, actually meteorites, 100-pound sized meteorites that come through the atmosphere and cause this kind of destruction. I'm not actually sure. It could be 100-pound actual hailstones, made out of water, and these would form in the clouds, because from outer space it is difficult to imagine that if an object is just made out of water, that during re-entry it wouldn't melt completely, unless it was absolutely huge as it entered the atmosphere. But, well, that's what the Bible says will happen. Either it will be icy objects or rocky objects coming from outer space. And we do have these debris field around the brown dwarf stars. And they, of course, will contain rocky objects that, when they enter the atmosphere, could cause a meteorite storm, basically, with many of them hitting the surface of the Earth. So it could be referring to that.
Well, I'll tell you what, for all you folks out there that have brand new cars, if you see these things falling out of the sky, you can kiss that new car goodbye. That's a fact. Those are the size of baseballs.
That's right. They are huge.
My God.
And the Bible actually talks of 100 pounds, and these would be, this person would not be able to hold them in their hands. They're so large.
That's incredible. That's insane.
Yes.
Here's the picture from Spain. I was just about to mention this article. I did a story on this this morning, and no sooner than I uploaded this story, I got an email. Oh, I think it was probably just somebody pulling my leg, and they said that that they live in Spain, and this happens every year, and this is nothing new. This happens all the time in the summer in Spain. Now, if this happened every single summer in Spain, I think we would be hearing about it.
I think so.
And that looks like wintertime.
It does.
Like wintertime in New York City.
Yes. It's amazing. I don't think this is normal. I don't think this is possible anywhere. I don't think it's been happening anywhere in the world. I mean, in South Africa, we usually have hailstorms, but I have never seen the ground covered by such a thick layer of hailstorms before. It's just, I don't think it's normal. I don't think
this is normal at all, because I mean, I showed some of the video that people had posted on Twitter that live in Spain. I read their comments to the short video clips, and this was turning into instantaneous flooding almost immediately, and these people are literally digging pathways with shovels in order to get into their buildings.
Yes, it's amazing.
July 1st. Okay, it's normally relatively warm. Look at the POW. It looks like freaking New York City in the middle of January.
That's right. It's amazing.
Again, wait a minute here. In the middle of January in New York this year, they were running around in shorts and riding their bicycles. And it was 60 degrees.
Oh my goodness. That is, well, that's what is supposed to happen when we have the Earth wobbling the way it's been doing, and when we have the warming up of the atmosphere and the oceans and the magma and the disruption in the weather patterns. This is to be expected.
Yeah, I think we're going to have more and more severe disruptions in our weather patterns, you know, as time goes on. As we move further and further into the summer in the Northern Hemisphere, I think things are going to get, like I said, very, very eye-opening. It's going to raise a lot of eyebrows. And, you know, one thing that I keep on mentioning is the hurricane season in the Northern Hemisphere. We haven't seen too much activity as of yet. But, you know, the hurricane season stretches all the way to November 1st. So we have a lot of time to go. And I think that as the temperatures start to increase from the equator north throughout the Atlantic, I think we're going to start to see some pretty wicked weather. And I believe there's a storm brewing right now in the southern Atlantic. And it's just a matter of time, folks. I mean, I keep having this reoccurring dream that we see a combination of two storms, one coming from the Gulf of Mexico and the other coming from the Atlantic, and literally merging together over the state of Florida in the northern panhandle region and making its way all the way up the east coast of the United States into Washington, D.C., and then into New York. I've been having this dream now for weeks. It's so vivid. I'm hoping that it's just a dream.
Yes.
But I can see something like that occurring with what's happening with our weather, with what's happening with the jet streams being so erratic, and this wobbling of the earth, which a lot of people don't believe is happening, but it's happening. It's definitely happening. You know, one other thing that I'm concerned with is I was reading some information once again about the ice melt in the North Pole. I mean, folks, if you take a look at satellite imaging of the North Pole just a few years ago compared to the latest imaging of the ice shelves, they're disappearing. They're disappearing. That's scary.
It is indeed.
But this was definitely an eye-opening article that the doctor has written. And, you know, folks, I do realize that a lot of this is scary information, but the fact of the matter is none of it's made up. It's all true. Every single bit of it. It's already happened. It's happening right now. We're living in the sign of the times. It's not fear-mongering. It's reporting on what is happening. I'm sure you all understand that. And, you know, I want to mention one other thing. You know, for all of you, the viewers and subscribers to my channel, hey, listen, you know, everybody that's sending all of this information in from around the world, I greatly appreciate it. I mean, it does save me a lot of time, and it opens my eyes to some things that are occurring that I didn't know about. And there is so much happening. I can literally sit at my computer for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and crank out video after video after video after video on what is happening. And you can't say that it's not happening, because it is. It most definitely is.
Yes.
And I truly believe that we are going to be faced with even more trying times that may possibly test people's faith. But you're going to have faith. You know, that much is for sure. This was an absolutely fantastic article. Definitely opened up my eyes to the things that are going on, that are occurring.
Mm-hmm.
There's no doubt about that. Wonderful report, Doctor. Very, very informational. I appreciate it. You taking the time to put all that together. I know it took you a long time to gather all of this information.
Well, thank you, Scott. It was good for me to write this. It was eye-opening for me as well that that we can now put together what it states in Revelation 16 with what we know is happening in the solar system, and explain why these things will happen. And that in a way shows you how close they are to happening, because otherwise we wouldn't have this understanding of what can cause these things. And yet we are seeing them start to happen, and we are seeing why they are happening. And to me, this is quite amazing, even though it is scary. But as I mentioned before, I'm not saying that the earth will be destroyed. I'm not saying that every city on earth will be destroyed. I think these events will affect different parts of the world at different times, except maybe for that huge earthquake that will affect probably most parts of the world. But maybe some cities will still be at least partially standing, hopefully, when it does happen. But I think people need to be prepared for what's ahead. And I think this is where I would like to again mention that we need our Creator, that perhaps He's even created this situation on earth, this severe situation, so that people turn to Him and seek help from Him. Because a lot of people are living their lives as if there is no Creator.
Yeah, so, that's going to backfire on them. That's definitely going to backfire. No doubt about it. You know, I mean, ladies and gentlemen, the fact of the matter is that, once again, as I've stated, these things are happening on a daily basis, on a minute-by-minute basis, everywhere around the world. And just because it's not happening to you and your family today doesn't mean that these things can't change. And then all of a sudden, you and your family and your friends and the people in your neighborhood or your city are now faced with what other people were faced with just 24 hours ago. It seems to me that things are changing so rapidly, very rapidly. Weather changes just coming out of nowhere. You know, 1 minute it's 75 degrees. And then today it's 93 or 100 degrees. Yeah, it's weather. Yeah, we've seen things like this happen before, but not to these extremes. Very extreme around the world. We're truly living in the sign of these times, and being prepared is just about all that we have. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with having a preparedness plan. You know, if you have a family and you have children, you know, sit everybody down. If the kids are old enough, you know, sit everybody down. Talk about it. Don't induce fear into them, but try to train everybody. Have a little plan. Have some type of emergency, as I call it, stuff. You know, some cases of water, some flashlights, some batteries, you know, an emergency medical kit. You know, food, canned food. I mean, I have a link for foodforliberty.com in the description box. If any of you guys are, you know, interested in prepping food items like that, they have a shelf life, I think, of like 20 years. You know, you can go that route, having what I call a bug out bin that will fit in your car that, you know, has change of clothes, this emergency stuff, flashlight, batteries, medical kit, and even a form of protection, whatever it may be. But having something like that ready, something that would fit in the trunk of your car, that in the case of an evacuation, you can put that bin in the back of your car and you can go. All of your important papers, you know, maybe deeds to your house, personal papers, wills, identification, social security card, whatever, you know, whatever you feel is important, sit down and get this stuff together. It's not going to hurt. I hope and pray every single day that none of us ever need anything like this. But when something does occur and you're not prepared, there's no time to gather this stuff and get moving. And then you regret it. You know, and I can guarantee that each and every one of us at one point in time has dealt with regret. And it's an awful feeling. Mm-hmm. So there's no sense in putting yourself through that, because at this point in time, it may be life or death. And if you're dealing with your family, your husband, your wife, your children, now you have more to think about, not only yourself. So preparing everyone is the right thing to do. It's not fear-mongering. It's giving you good advice, the best advice that we can give you. You know, I'm not a solid prepper, you know, with a bunker and all of this stuff, but I'm prepared. I'm prepared because I don't want to be out there with no electricity, no food, no water, no way to, you know, bandage a cut or a scrape that could possibly get infected and cost you your life. I don't want to be thirsty. I don't want to be hungry. I don't want to be threatened, meaning, hey, if you have to protect yourself from people that are trying to steal what you have no choice in the matter. So these preparation plans for you and your family, regardless of where you live, it should be something that you should think about. Mm-hmm. It would definitely not hurt.
Definitely.
Any last words, Doctor, before we end our live stream?
Well, I agree with you, Scott. Thank you for helping me with this report, and thank you for mentioning all that people can do to prepare. And I'd just like to mention again that best preparation you can do is the spiritual preparation of getting to know our Creator.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. And listen, ladies and gentlemen, you know, each and every day, now that the doctor is in the United States, you know, she's now finally starting to get adjusted to her time zone, her new time zone. Mm-hmm. And, you know, she's very busy from the very, very early morning hours of about 5 a.m. now. And she's continuing on writing her book and also making observations on, you know, what is occurring in our solar system. And also, you know, we're gathering new information and new evidence. And, you know, she's going to be helping me in the very, very near future here with a lot of the emails that are coming in, because we're actually being inundated with information from around the world. And I received a very interesting email today from another doctor. And I don't mean a medical doctor. I mean an astrophysicist from a university. He's retired, 35 years of lecturing and teaching. And, you know, he's in the same educational background as the doctor here. And he sent me a very, very long email today. and he's always had a pretty broad interest in astronomy. And the email that he sent today was very heartfelt towards myself and the doctor and for what we're trying to accomplish. And he was mentioning that he would like to join us in some of our talks. And he would also like to help with some of this information. And what actually sparked him to open his mouth was hearing what happened to this woman that is speaking with you today on this live stream. It actually sparked him to come out and possibly open his mouth and lend his expertise, his knowledge, and critical observations that he's been making for the past 5 years. And if he comes to the forefront, he may be possibly bringing I hope some groundbreaking information. But folks, it does take a certain breed of individual to give up everything, put yourself out there, as we say, put yourself out there to be attacked and criticized. I'm not sure if he's going to do it, but by the tone of his email today, it was pretty interesting. So, I returned the email in hopes to hear from him soon. And this should be interesting. Very interesting. And we will be back tomorrow with another live stream. And, we're going to try to hold these live streams, kind of in the evening hours to allow everybody to, get home from work and maybe get settled in. And it's kind of hard to adjust things for everyone's time zone around the world. But listen, don't forget that once the live stream is done, it's processed into a video and it will be up on the Nibiru Planet X channel, and it will be up on the Planet X News channel. And once again, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for sticking with us, standing by us, and helping out with the information. Because without all of you, it would be really, really hard to make a lot of these observations and gather this information. And what we're truly showing here is massive teamwork, banding together. And that is exactly what the powers to be, the elite, the new world order, that's exactly what they don't want you to do. So you should all be commended. My hat's off to all of you. Love you guys to death. This is Scott and our physicist from Planet X News and the Nibiru channel. You all have a very nice evening. Thank you all for watching.